Most fans saw the clip and brushed it off as just another scary wrestling moment, the kind you scroll past after a second glance. But that's exactly why this footage hit differently once people actually paid attention. There was no crowd noise, no chaos, no reckless ladder war unfolding in front of thousands. It was quiet, controlled, planned, and that's what made it terrifying. This wasn't a risky stunt gone wrong in the heat of a match. This was a reminder that in pro wrestling, danger doesn't wait for the big moments. Sometimes it shows up when everything is supposed to be safe. The footage Tiffany Stratton shared wasn't meant to shock anyone. In her mind, it was just a behind-the-scenes look at preparation, the kind of thing fans rarely see. But the moment it went viral, the tone shifted. What people noticed wasn't how athletic she looked or how impressive the setup was. It was how fast everything unraveled. 1 second she's steady on the ladder, the next her body twists in a way that makes your stomach drop. And suddenly, the idea that this could happen to anyone stops being a cliche and starts feeling very real. What makes this incident so unsettling is where it happened. Not on a live premium event. Not during a reckless spot push by adrenaline. This was practice. The safest environment wrestlers can ask for. Crash pads on the floor. Colleagues positioned to help. No pressure to rush. No audience demanding spectacle. And yet, none of that mattered. The moment her leg caught the top rope, control vanished. In wrestling, there's a thin line between a planned fall and complete disaster, and she crossed it in a fraction of a second. Tiffany later described it plainly, saying this was the night before a huge match and the moment she nearly broke her neck. No exaggeration, no dramatic retelling, just a blunt acknowledgement of how close things came to ending very differently. Watching the clip back, you can see how the spot was supposed to work. She's pushed off the ladder, her foot taps the rope, and she springs forward onto the pad. Clean, simple, but the plan relied on everything being perfect, and wrestling doesn't care about perfect. The detail that stands out immediately is the way her leg was positioned. 1 foot extended, angled to make contact with the rope. It wasn't a reckless decision, just a calculated one. In her head, it made sense. A quick spring, a controlled fall, and it's done. But that single point of contact became the problem. Instead of a smooth bounce, her leg snagged. Her momentum shifted. Her upper body rotated before her lower half could follow. That's when things go from uncomfortable to dangerous. What fans often don't understand is how little room for error there is in moments like this. Even something that looks slow and deliberate can turn violent instantly. There's no reset button once gravity takes over. The body reacts before the mind can catch up. And that's exactly what happened here. The fall accelerated, not because anyone pushed harder, but because physics decided the spot was over. Another detail that got overlooked in the early reactions was the positioning of the women on the floor. They weren't bracing for impact. They weren't locked in, ready to catch someone dropping at full speed. And that wasn't negligence. That was expectation. Everyone involved believed this would be gentle. A controlled slide into the pad. Something closer to a walkthrough than a real fall. That's the danger of practice. It lowers your guard without you realizing it. In a live match, adrenaline forces reactions to speed up. Bodies move faster. Hands reach instinctively. In practice, everything slows down. You talk through spots. You ease into them. You trust the plan. And when the plan breaks, there's no time to adjust. The moment went from manageable to terrifying before anyone could react. Not because they weren't skilled, but because the situation changed too quickly. The most chilling part is how close this came to altering everything. This wasn't early in her training. This wasn't before WWE invested in her. This was on the verge of a major match at Stand and Deliver, a showcase designed to elevate careers. Tiffany Stratton was already being positioned as a future centerpiece of the women's division. And in one uncontrolled second, that future almost disappeared. Watching the footage, it's impossible not to think about what could have happened. A slightly different angle, a harder landing, a head clipping the apron instead of the pad. We've seen careers end from far less. We've seen lives changed forever by moments that looked routine until they weren't. That's why this clip stuck with people. Not because it was flashy, but because it was honest. What makes it even harder to process is what happened the very next night. Despite that scare, Tiffany still went out there and performed a similar spot during the actual ladder match. Same idea. Same risk. Different environment. And somehow, it worked. She crashed to the outside, landed on her opponents, and the match continued. Fans cheered. The moment passed, but knowing what almost happened the night before adds an entirely new layer to that match. That ladder match itself was stacked. Roxanne Perez defending against a field that included Tiffany, Lyra Valkyria, Indy Hartwell, Zoe Stark, and Gigi Dolan. High stakes, high risk. In the end, Indy Hartwell walked away with the title. Tiffany didn't win that night, but her performance solidified her as someone WWE believed in. And that's where the story takes an even darker turn, because that near disaster didn't slow her down. If anything, her career accelerated. She didn't shy away from ladder matches. She didn't get pulled back into safer roles. Instead, she leaned into the danger. She kept taking risks. And a year later, she climbed another ladder on an even bigger stage. Winning the Women's Money in the Bank in 2024 wasn't just a milestone. It was proof that WWE trusted her in one of the most dangerous match types they offer. Ladders, timing, chaos. Everything that almost ended her career before it really began. And this time, she didn't just survive, she thrived. When she cashed in and became WWE Women's Champion earlier this year, it felt inevitable, like this was always the plan. Well, watching that old practice footage now makes it feel fragile, like the entire timeline hinged on one moment where things didn't go just a little bit worse. Her championship run defined what many fans started calling Tiffy time. She dominated SmackDown. She carried herself like a star. But even success came with complications. The feud with Nia Jax dragged on longer than it needed to, and when WWE went back to it later in the year, it felt more like a lack of options than a clear vision. Then came Charlotte Flair. On paper, it was supposed to be simple. Charlotte returns from a long absence. She wins the Royal Rumble. She dethrones the rising champion. The crowd rallies behind the comeback. That's how these stories usually go. Except this time, it didn't work. The reaction wasn't there. The alignment felt off, and WWE had to pivot fast. Instead of forcing the narrative, they adjusted. Tiffany didn't crumble. She adapted. She became something in between. Not fully villain, not fully hero. And in doing so, she proved she wasn't just a planned success. She was someone fans genuinely responded to. Still, cracks showed in how the division was handled. SmackDown's women's roster lacked depth. Feuds felt stretched. Momentum stalled. Eventually, her title reign ended against Jade Cargill at Saturday night's main event in November. Since then, she's been off TV, quiet, absent. And that absence brings everything back into focus. Because once you've seen how close it all came to ending in a silent practice ring, every disappearance feels heavier. Fans start wondering, is this just creative? Is this recovery? Or is it something else entirely? The Royal Rumble looms, and with it, questions about when and how she returns. That's the lasting impact of that viral clip. It changed how people see her, not just as a confident, athletic star, but as someone who stared straight at a career-ending moment and kept going anyway. It also changed how fans view wrestling itself, not as a series of controlled stunts, but as a profession where even the simplest bump can flip everything upside down. There are countless moments like this that never see the light of day. Practice mishaps, near misses, quiet scares that stay locked behind gym doors. This one just happened to be shared, and once you see it, it's impossible to forget, because the scariest part isn't what happened. It's what almost did.